I will see you in April. Who let me say that? I have done it. I have rewritten all 6 episodes of Loki season 1, to the way that I like them. I stupidly gave myself a month to write 6 episodes. I have notes here. Wow, look at that glow. I have notes here that I wrote about everything. I will be reading from them, and I don't have a script, so we just fucking move. If you don't know what's happening, I'm rewriting the MCU. I'm starting with Loki season 1. Why am I starting with Loki season 1? Because I did not like Loki season 1, and the rule is for rewriting the MCU, I need to use WandaVision and Loki as jump off points because we are doing the multiverse, because I believe that the multiverse is possible to be done or written well. I just think that what's happening is bad management. I'm only rewriting Loki season 1 because I actually fucked with Loki season 2 because I really liked the ending, and if the end works out, oftentimes I can just forgive everything else, which is not how you should go about life. Do as I say, not as I do. I have rules for writing the first season of Loki. First, it needs to be PG-13. Second, the episodes need to be 30 minutes long, minimum, which I did do. The rule in script writing is that 1 page should equal around 1 minute, okay? I did 25 pages minimum, I think, for each of the episodes. You could say that's 25 minutes, but I'm also taking into account that if I were to actually film it and watch these actors act it out and stuff, we're taking into account all the silences, the scenery, okay? 3, it needs to line up at least 90-80% to season 2. What that means is that I need to have the same characters, so I need to have Miss Minutes, Judge, Ravonna, Mobius, Loki, Sylvie, and Kang. And also it needs to end the same way as season 1 ended, which is the timelines breaking apart. Very quickly going to tell you about my main issues, which is mainly just characters, and I think that characters always drive the story, which is why the story itself was really bad, but the story itself is an entirely different thing. I'm just gonna read exactly what I fucking wrote down. Who the fuck everything is wrong. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I was watching the first season and it feels like whoever was writing, I'm looking at you, Michael Waldron.
Don't ever, for any reason, do anything to anyone, for any reason, ever, no matter what.
Whoever was writing did not know a single thing about Loki. If they did know anything about Loki, they knew Loki from Thor Ragnarok Loki, and they tried to completely bypass the fact that the Loki we're dealing with is Avengers Loki, is Thor the Dark World Loki. So what they did was, in the first episode, they did a very lazy thing, and I'm calling it out for what it is, where they try to speed run Loki's character development, jump the gun, and force that character into Thor Ragnarok Loki. And the way that they did that, I will rant about later. It's fine.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
This is the Loki that we should be dealing with in this show is a Loki that failed his attempt at the end of Thor, lest we forget, and also just attempted to take over the entirety of New York / the world, and was, because we have media literacy, also used as a weapon by Thanos. Tortured, right? I have proof. Sweetest thing. That isn't to take away from his desperation to prove himself by taking over a planet. 2 things can be true at once, okay? He can both be used as a weapon, tortured, and also have his own cards in the game. Also, they entirely forgot that this god is a Jotun. And that's like his main thing. That's their like main issue, right? From Thor 1 is this identity that they are adopted and that they're actually a frost giant.
What, because I'm the monster parents tell their children about at night? You know, it all makes sense now why you favored Thor all these years. Because no matter how much you claim to love me, You could never have a frost giant sitting on the throne of Asgard.
Also, queer identity. Loki is gender fluid. Can you tell that I'm filming this on my laptop? Loki is also queer. The way that they address this in the show, poor. Piss poor.
A bit of both.
Lost potential. That's quite literally it. I think that they didn't do enough with Mobius's character. I think that they could have done so much with Mobius's character, especially being a character that works in the TVA and thinks that they do not have a life. I did not see enough of that explored. I also did not get to see enough of their feelings towards Loki explored. I also just want to say, relationship between Mobius and Loki, they had so much potential there. It doesn't even need to be fucking strictly romantic. The fact that you have a character who works to erase timelines, you're telling me that this is the first time they've dealt with a Loki? You have such a great fucking setup to have a character who has dealt with another character 700 times and the other character doesn't know that. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Don't worry, you will understand it once we get through the fucking episodes. Lost potential, point, main character, question mark. Sylvie has so many fucking issues. I don't like the fact that she was the main antagonist of the show. She should not have been the main antagonist of the show. They made Sylvie a love interest, which immediately makes her separate from the Loki that we know. And they also made Sylvie separate by having this stupid fuck ass line later on when they're in the, like, in between or whatever.
I'm the same as all of you. Have any of you met a woman variant of us? Sounds terrifying. Oh, she is.
I'm going to commit a crime. They made this whole thing about her being a woman. They made it clear that she's different. They made it clear that she's different from a Loki because she's an issue to the TVA. Her being an issue to the TVA immediately undermines the TVA. That's another thing that I fucking hated. Why is the TVA asking for help from a Loki to capture another Loki? If you cannot handle a Loki, right, as a TVA, as your fucking job, how are you going to handle a fucking Thanos that's gone off his line, right? How are you gonna handle a Vision that's gone off his fucking course? Ravonna, I don't think that they knew what to do with her. That's what I said. They didn't know what to do with her, I think. They didn't. Why was she so friendly to Mobius all the time? She was not as scary as I think she should have been, or she didn't have as much authority as I think she should have had. I didn't like the fact that she didn't know that Kang was Kang, right? I want her character and slash made her character in my rewrite somebody who's more in charge and knows he who remains, etc. Too much of Miss Minutes. I don't like Miss Minutes. And yes, I did include Miss Minutes because that's part of the rules, but she's like barely in there. All 6 episodes are a first draft. I wrote them, I did not edit them. My boy. Which means that I might not entirely agree with them, and if I had more time, I would totally go back and change things. And they're also not perfect. I'm not claiming that any of my rewrites are going to be perfect. There's probably a lot of stuff that I would shift around, probably a lot of stuff that I would add on or take away, tamper with. The drawings that I did all of the drawings, and forgive me, they might at times be really low effort and sometimes they might be extremely high effort. This is my first time attempting to create animatics. So this is like, it's been a learning curve. And also, as these videos go on, hopefully I will be getting better. Voice acting, you'll see, it's fine. We begin the same as the first episode, the OG episode, except this time, instead of Loki taking the Tesseract and falling into an empty desert in Mongolia, Loki lands in Paris and he causes a mess. Like, it's a busy Paris street at nighttime. He crashes, mess. The fight between the TVA soldiers, which I've now called hunters, and here is a redesign. Yes, I understand. it looks exactly like Tron Legacy We Move. I've called them hunters now, because there is a hierarchy, and I will explain it later. But Hunter B15, I don't know if that's their name or if Hunter was a title, but I would like to see more of it. Like, oh, these are hunters, because I think that it makes them more scary. I wanted the TVA to be a little bit more daunting, a little bit scarier, and a little bit more powerful than they were portrayed in the OG. Loki has an actual fight with the hunters, with the TVA soldiers, because it annoyed me that they just hit him with this like slow motion thing and like that was it. We are dealing with an Asgardian fucking prince, bro, who knows magic, who has 100% trained for war, okay? Where is all of that? I do not think that this character is going to go without a fight. He gets into a fight with the hunters. It goes on for quite a while, and the hunters have these like lightsaber things. I've kind of changed their sticks because I think they look lame like that. Now they're like swords or like lightsabers, and there's two settings. There's an orange setting, and when they're fighting, halfway through, they get a little notification on their computer that's like high potential, and they flick the thing, it turns blue, and they get to fighting again. We get to a point where Loki goes to take a swing at the last hunter that he needs to take out, and the hunter presses a button, and Loki's mother's voice, Frigga's voice, calls his name, and he stumbles. And when he stumbles, the hunter has the opportune moment to hit Loki with the blue blade, and Loki disappears in front of us. The reason that I changed the fight from an empty desert to Paris is because I want the hunters to place down their little time thing and right from the get-go show us that they can restart an entire timeline. There's this massive mess, they put down their thing, it prunes or restarts the timeline, and everything is back to how it began. And then we actually start the episode. In this setting, you can show off the skill set of the TVA, of the hunters. I've told you everything and I've told you nothing, right? In the first minute. Then Loki shows up in a TVA holding room. He has a collar on him, he is chained to the desk, but more than that, Loki is in his Jotun form. This is so important to me. They had this thing about no magic being in the TVA, and Loki was somehow still in his Asgardian form. Do we forget that Loki's Asgardian form, he is not Asgardian. He's not even in the slightest, like, blood Asgardian, right? He was stolen from Jotunheim as a little blue baby, okay, and brought to Asgard. What he looks like when he's Tom Hiddleston, right, that is not his natural form. His natural form is his blue form, okay? That's what he looks like, or that's what he's supposed to look like, and everything else is just a mirage. It's a magic. That's my canon thing, or slash, that's the way that I'm looking at it. And also, if that is the case, or slash, if we do it like that, that means that we have so much more to work with. It's so delicious. So he's sitting there at the desk. Mobius comes and sits across from him. We do get an introduction of Miss Minutes where she basically explains how the timeline works. She also explains that Loki has been basically selected by the TVA because the system regarded him a high potential, quote unquote. So that means that either his brawn or his brain is good enough for the TVA to be used by the TVA to work for the TVA. Does that make sense? And I like that a lot better than the TVA being like, we need your help to catch this Loki. Because this time it actually gives a reason for Loki to simply be within the TVA instead of them just straight up pruning them. The whole system that they had where they were like, you take the thing and then you go to court and then you plead your case, but they're gonna prune you anyway, really weird, and it doesn't make sense. So this gives Loki a reason to be here, and it gives the TVA a reason to want Loki to be here. And it also perfectly ties in to the very end of season 2 when Loki has his glorious purpose, right? Everything has a reason. Everything happens for a reason. So there is a reason that the system is saying that Loki has high potential. Mobius gives a little introduction, gives him a tour of the TVA, which I really like. He's like, here's the cinema, here's the museum, here's the thing. The museum is important because I put like a little sign outside that they're doing renovations, like a new new exhibition in the museum that has to do with Infinity Stone. And Loki's like,
Why are you blue?
Mobius is like, that's all you, baby. After Mobius gives the tour of the TVA, Mobius leads Loki to their room, right? They're like, we'll set you up with a room because your body needs to adjust and it's somewhere that's like private for you. You know, you work here. And Mobius is like, I'll pick you up in a bit for your training session, for your first training session. Loki is left alone in the room. We have a moment where we can see that Loki is really unhappy with their Jotun form. And I make that very clear in the first episode and in other episodes because it's important for me that we get this through, that Loki isn't happy with being a Jotun. Then I have a training montage.
The sky's burning shields from your bedside drawer. I snatched them myself off the ocean floor. Strung around your neck on a wave of breeze. You'd wear them like that back when we used to do.
There you go. I hope you enjoyed that. I did not use the entire song because there's another song for another montage at the end that I want to be able to make sure I don't get in trouble for copyright. In that montage, hopefully it gets across that Loki is looking for a way out, is unhappy with the way that they look, that they are, is planning, scheming, plotting, and is also training with Mobius. And I have this little line that Mobius tells Loki right before they get to training. Okay, all you have to do is hit me with the orange stick. And Loki's like, do you know who I am? And Mobius replies, I know you better than you think, and swings at him before he has a chance to even register what that means. And I like that line, because that implies so much that we get to unpack in, like, episode 3. They have a couple of more conversations of Loki trying to dig around. Hopefully you will read the script. I think that you should just read the script at the end of all of this, because I did spend time actually writing it, but we don't have time in the video to break down every single line. There's a lot that they talk about. At one point, Loki does try to escape. He goes through the vent and falls into the museum because he knows that the Infinity Stones are there. So he thinks that if he can get the Infinity Stones, he can use them, get the collar off, get the fuck out of there. Mobius finds him. He has a little tracker to track Loki because it's the collar. And they have this whole thing, and the Infinity Stones obviously don't work because they don't. They are outside of their universe, and my whole thing is like the Infinity Stones are connected to the universe. And so when they are outside of the universe, they don't have magical properties or whatever. But Loki's magic is not connected to like the universe. It's connected to themselves, right? So that means that even if Loki is outside of the universe, their magic would theoretically still work if they didn't have the collar. When Loki realizes that the time stones, or the stones, the Infinity Stones, are not going to work, Loki tries to attack Mobius with a broken piece of glass that he got from his mirror. And Mobius uses the same tactic that the hunters used on Loki at the beginning, which is pressing a button and suddenly Frigga calls Loki's name. Loki stumbles. What was that? Mobius is like, that was rude. I'm sorry. Loki threatens him. He's like, where the fuck is my mother? What have you done to her? And Mobius takes Loki to a memory chamber and opens up a memory, right? And this is my equivalent of that fuck-ass scene where Loki was sat in a room and just watched his entire life fly by. That was a useless scene. You do not show the audience what they have already seen. Like, we know this and we've seen this, and it's lazy because also a Loki would not have a character development that fast simply by watching themselves die, simply by watching their entire life. That's not how that works. There has to be something out there that affects Loki a lot more, and still we need to understand that Loki as a character is a lot more guarded. What happens here is Mobius explains that this is the memory chamber. When they prune or slash, when they take in a new person, the system collects all of their memories to use it as a weapon or to use it as like help to help them get adjusted to the TVA. And that's where Frigga's voice is coming from. So he opens up a memory, and the memory is Frigga with child Loki. And they're in a garden. And Frigga is teaching Loki how to use their magic. I think that that scene is a lot more impactful than us simply watching Loki's entire fucking story again. I would like to see things that we haven't seen before. It's lazy if you're not willing to film new scenes. And Frigga and Loki's relationship is extremely important, and it's something that deserves to be unpacked here. Loki doesn't believe that Frigga is safe. He's like, well, that's just a memory. How do I know you're not fucking lying to me? So Mobius shows him an image of Frigga immediately after Loki is arrested after New York. And it's Frigga crying in her room and asking herself what she's done wrong. And Loki tries to interact with her, but he can't because he cannot be seen. But near the end of this little scene, we have one moment where I kind of imply that Frigga does sense Loki is there. Because I love Frigga so much. It's not fair that she was like used in Thor, and then Thor Dark World, and they fucking killed her, and then they used her again in Avengers. I just want more of her. She's a wonderful woman. These two scenes obviously affect Loki, but he doesn't show that. So what he does is turns around to Mobius and strikes up a deal, because that's the way that Loki works. Loki says, let's strike up a deal. We both know that I'm going to continue trying to get out of here. So you just need to let me out of here.
Why? 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 Why?
Mobius takes Loki to Judge Ravonna, says, here you go. Here's the deal, and they strike up a mouse contract, is what it's called, which basically means now Loki needs to prune a specific number of people timelines, and once they do that, they get out. And what it ends with is, like, Mobius gets a little ping on his computer that they have a case that they can go and work on. Mobius runs to find Loki and sees him staring over the balcony of the TVA out at the cars and the dome and everything. This episode follows their first case, okay? I've changed a lot about the way that the TVA works. The TVA does not simply just show up to different timelines and start pruning as it goes. I've made certain areas of it a little bit more complicated. Does anybody here know Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency? That's the vibe that I'm going for here, which is we follow clues that do not exactly exist, we just follow the flow of the universe. The way that I have Mobius explain these cases is that sometimes on the timeline, one person steps out of line, but it's so subtle that the system itself does not know what it is. But it causes like a domino effect, where in the end something really big does not happen that was meant to happen. So what happens is Mobius, as the detective, he calls himself the Hour, right? The detective, goes with his Minuteman, who is Loki, who helps him build the case, which is the day, goes to the very end of this line, and then they need to follow it backwards. Find out why exactly didn't you do this specific thing, and why didn't you do this specific thing, and what happened for you to have not done this specific thing, until they find the first outlier. And then they prune that person because that is a virus, right? They don't want to have to reset the timeline and then that specific person be respawned and make the same mistake. So they prune the person first and then they prune the timeline. Does that make sense? I think that it's a little bit more dynamic, and it's a little bit more interesting, and it shows you that there is a system and a way that the system works, that the TVA works, okay? And I do like the hierarchy that I created. Hunters are seconds. They are only used if you are desperate for them. So they also deal with issues where the system knows exactly what the fucking issue is. So if there's like, for example, somebody sets off a bomb when they aren't supposed to set off a bomb, system can easily recognize that, okay? Hunters are sent to deal with that. Minutemen are the assistants to the hours, which are the detectives. And then the day is the case. Their case begins in India. So what's wrong in the system is that a scientist hasn't completed her research paper slash hasn't invented a specific type of spaceship that revolutionizes space travel for the human race. We're in 2045, and you could be like, Tony Stark already did this. When it fits into my rewrite of the MCU, it's gonna fucking make sense, okay? I swear to God. Just run with the fact that they do not have very good space travel. Like humans themselves do not have, in the public, very good space travel at this moment. They show up in India at 2:07 a.m. They open the door, they go into Amrata's apartment, who is the scientist, under this guise of like, we're here to inspect it.
Good afternoon.
Mobius notices the layout of the place. There's like a poster of Rome, you know, there's this massive computer. The TV is off, the couch is a mess. There is a book, a sci-fi book on the table that she has been reading, but apparently got so bored of that she put down. They have this conversation for a little while. She offers them tea. He's like, why haven't you finished your research paper yet? And she's like, listen, I swear that I'm gonna get it done. Basically, we end that scene with a little situation where Mobius has everything that he needs. She kicks them out because she's uncomfortable with them.
Is everything okay then, safety-wise?
Yes, except your kitchen fan is broken and that window can't open. You should get them fixed before deciding to build anything in here. You could also use our labs.
I don't use the labs.
Of course. My partner and I will be off then. Mobius opens up another portal and pushes Loki and himself into Rome. 2007. They pick up a few more clues, but at the same time, I really want to showcase that Loki is insecure because we need to remember Loki is still in his Jotun form and he is surrounded by humans in Rome in 2007. So they are all staring at him, taking photos.
Why are you blue?
Mobius is like, bro, we're gonna fucking prune this place. And none of these people actually exist. So all of these photos doesn't matter. They go into a comic store. The owner is supposed to be a film director, but he's not a film director for some reason. He's not inspired to be a film director. He likes documentaries. Loki picks up a comic book and starts making fun of the fact that it's like ridiculous that humans like read this. There is a TV in the back that is playing ballet. Before, when they arrived in Rome, Loki pulled them into an alleyway and was like, you need to change me back, which is where they have their little conversation. But above them, subtly, if I was to be filming this, a window is open, and through the window, the news is playing, and it's saying that America is about to meet with Japan for some kind of conference. Mobius gets it. But bing, they go again, and they end up in Kyoto. Mobius points out that the river that they are by there's something missing, there's something wrong here, and so they follow this invisible trail, or the wind basically is how I would film it. They follow it to find a woman crying at a temple, and she's not supposed to be at the temple, she's supposed to be at the river. That's what they understand, but why is she at the temple? So they follow a little bit more of the stream. They find themselves at her home, where a man is sleeping and he's been drinking, which is very obvious. And that's the issue, right? He has done something that has upset her so much, she has decided to go pray all night at the temple instead of going down to the river. So they prune him, and right before they are about to prune the timeline and get out of there, Loki has this moment where he spots a girl, or a girl spots him in his Jotun form. She's about to scream, and they get out of there. Mobius brings Loki back to the timeline. So what they're doing is basically he brings him back to Kyoto, to the river, and they see the woman at the river, and he says her name is Okuni. Tonight she meets with her friend by the river. They come up with a performance style called kabuki. Then in 2006, Luigi, who's the guy who was working at the comic store, picks up an old documentary DVD on the performance. He is so inspired he writes and directs a colorful sci-fi musical that plays whilst Amrita is falling asleep. She's jolted when a character utters the words "sunshine blocks" with the final puzzle piece to her invention. Space travel revolutionized for the human race is the way that was explained. I can't tell if the case is extremely obvious and the clues are extremely obvious, or if it's really, really stupid, or if it's just I think that it's really obvious because I came up with a case, but it would work something like that, and maybe somebody could do a better job of writing a case that works like that. Then we have a little montage of multiple cases. So in this montage, it would be Loki and Mobius pruning a bunch of people. You know that scene from Barbie when they're like going through different scenes? Or have you ever like watched a scene when they're walking through different doors and the doors like lead into different settings? That's what I'm imagining here, which is simply just Loki and Mobius walking through different rooms, which ends up being different settings, and they're pruning. Just to like speed things up a bit, okay? To get the point across that Loki is actually going along with this so that he can get the fuck out of there. And whilst they're doing that, I'm also showing you that the numbers on his computer are going up, right? Because they're keeping count of how many he's pruning. And then once that is done, Mobius is like, come, I want to show you something. And I Beauty and the Beast you. Yep, I Beauty and the Beast you. Mobius takes Loki to the library and is like, look at this glorious library. You can read whatever you want here. There's even Asgardian shit. Then Mobius gifts Loki with the controller to his collar so that he can get rid of it. They have a little conversation where Loki kind of says he feels really off when he's doing this work. Like, he feels as if he's committing a crime, as if he's doing something dreadful, like he's murdering someone. And every time he follows the trail and he prunes a timeline, it's really fucking weird. But then he kind of brushes it off and he's like, I must be going insane. Can't wait to get out of here.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
We get a scene where Loki presses the button, gets rid of his collar. We watch Loki return to the Loki that we know, practice magic, where Loki summons a little butterfly, right? Loki sits down in their chair, turns on their computer. Mobius and Casey are laughing about something next to him in their booth, and he's a little happy. And then they notice on their computer, their numbers are not adding up. They've been minimized, right? He's missing at least 7,000 cases and realizes, I mean, of course, like they knew that this was gonna happen anyways, but they were hoping a little bit that it would be easy this one time. Loki turns to look at Mobius, who is still laughing. Mobius turns to look at Loki. This one is my favorite concept for an episode, but it is not the favorite that I wrote. In fact, it might be my least favorite that I wrote, just because I think that there is so much that I could make better or do better, but I think that I was really burning myself out because I wrote the first 2 episodes in like 2 days, and then I tried to write the 3rd episode on the 3rd day, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I never fixed it, so... This episode follows Mobius before our Loki arrives. It's shown that there are multiple Lokis, lots who attack him, and which are constantly pruned, okay? And when I say multiple Lokis, I mean there are woman Lokis, non-binary Lokis, Jotun Lokis, non-Jotun Lokis, right? Like, all sorts of Lokis. And they all act the same in the way that they are trying to get out of the TVA. And they are pruning Mobius, and they are, or not pruning Mobius, they are attacking Mobius and or being pruned by the lasers, cameras in the hallways, which I think I forgot to mention. There's laser cameras in the TVA, by the way. Like, the entire place is safeguarded, and if it sees you fucking up, kills you. Which makes it a little bit scarier, which I think that it needs. We basically show Mobius going through the ringer. Okay, you'll like the office job. You wanna try some? Who? Why hire a snake? Well, we thought you liked them. This is a snake, B-15. It's a Loki. No, it's... Well, sure, but I mean, they don't even have thumbs. I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. Okay, so maybe it hurts a little, but really, I'm fine. It's a bit comedic, but if you think about it too much, it becomes sad, so just don't think about it too much. Then we have one Loki, which we have a longer time to interact with. This Loki mentions running away together. And from Mobius, we get his belief that he isn't real, therefore he cannot live in the timeline. I do like this scene because Loki stabs him for two reasons, right? Loki stabs him for the first reason, which is proof that Mobius is real. Points out the fact that Mobius is bleeding, flesh, blood, bone. That's good enough. You can fit in the timeline. Two, Loki stabs Mobius because this Loki is at the end of their line. They do not want to be in the TVA anymore. They do not want to be here, and they know that the only way to get out of the TVA, they figured it out at this point, is to be pruned, right? And this Loki is quite upset because this Loki says, we're murdering people. We are murdering billions of people. We are wiping out timelines. And Mobius says, this is not murder, this is pruning. I want Mobius to be so, like, within the system that it's difficult for Mobius to get out of the system. Metaphors.
And at 4:30, there's the homoerotic subtext of Supernatural.
And then we have an interaction with the judge where she, like, talks about, like, she heard over the cameras that this Loki was talking about taking down the TVA. I think that this could be written better. And honestly, I think that this is what I really didn't like about this episode, is that I struggled writing the interactions between Mobius and Ravonna, that whole section of it, where she was like, you need to be more careful with the Lokis and stuff, or you need to tighten the leash. I would make her say, but I don't like the way that I wrote it there, but still it exists. Like, that's what would sort of happen. For that, we have another important Loki. This Loki talks in sign language, and this is a Loki that I mention in one of the first two episodes, where Mobius kind of gives a little bit about how Mobius has dealt with at least 500 different versions of Loki. One time, he says he had to learn Asgardian Sign Language, and it took him forever because Loki kept telling him that certain signs mean different things than what they actually mean. Does that make sense? Because that just feels like a Loki thing, right? So this is the Loki that Mobius had to learn sign language for. This Loki is important. I love this Loki. So they're playing chess. It's a very cute interaction, but it ends up in another argument where basically Loki brings up the fact that he would like, please, to get out of the TVA. And it ends again the very same way that it did before, where Loki stabs Mobius, except this time it's a lot more dire than it was last time. And Mobius is in a little bit of a critical condition, and a little bit shaken, and a little bit tired. And this Loki is important because this is the Loki right before our Loki shows up. So what this episode shows is that after this interaction, Mobius nearly gives up working with the Lokis. And in this episode, I'm not explaining this episode very well. You can see that I did not write this episode very well, but the concept of the episode is still there. And you can read it and decide, yeah, it's really shit as well, and I won't blame you. But Mobius has the conversations that Mobius has with Judge Ravonna is they're basically Mobius saying, I swear that Loki is important to the system somehow. There is a reason that the system keeps bringing in Lokis to work for us, because there must be a reason that the system keeps saying that Loki is a high potential, right? And Ravonna is like, fine, whatever, for the timekeepers. At one point in their interaction, I wanted Ravonna to slip up and say he who remains, but also I don't like the name he who remains. It's a little bit too similar to he who must not be named, and I kept nearly typing that out and then needing to delete it and be like, this is not Harry Potter. I would probably call he who remains like a fancy name like the Centurion or the Keeper or something like that, right? The main point is that Mobius hears this title rather than the timekeepers, right? Is told, you work for the Centurion or you work for the Keeper, and no one else. That's your life purpose in this like argument that he has with Ravonna. And that is the only reason that Mobius decides to take this final case of Loki, because it's also made clear that this is the last Loki that Judge Ravonna will ever allow, kind of thing. I also want to imply that she's testing Mobius, but I don't think that I wrote that well as well.
After you get rid of me, who will the next fool be?
My first note on this is can't remember, because I was writing this secretly whilst I was working. We start with another case on an alien planet. The alien planet is like mushroom buildings and bug people. Imagine it. Loki is uncharacteristically joyful. They follow the lead into a sewer. When Mobius falls down this sewer, he falls into pitch black darkness, and Loki is nowhere to be seen. And then Loki scares him, and we have this little moment where Loki is Asgardian Loki now, right? Loki scares him and does this little comment where he's like, "Imagine if I was the other guy, you'd be like shitting yourself." He doesn't actually say that. This is PG-13, okay, but we get the point. They follow the lead through the sewer. Mobius tries to have this like awkward, serious conversation about Loki and the way he feels about being a Jotun, but it gets cut off when a rat goes by and Loki's like, I hear something. The rat scurries past their feet, this like mushroom rat scurries past their feet in this darkness. We hear a little splash as if it falls into water, swimming around. Then it comes out of water, and suddenly there's a splat and a squeak, and then the sound of crunching. Loki and Mobius are like, what the fuck? What the fuck is happening right now? Loki lights up the place with his magic. And on the other side, there is a creature which you're gonna have to read for yourself. But it is this like 8-limbed creature, 3-headed thing that looks like a lizard with pink skin and no scales. And it only has one set of eyes, which is on top of the middle head. I don't know if this is PG-13, if it's too scary, but that is what I was imagining. I don't know why. The person that they were looking for, or the person that was missing from the timeline or whatever, is dead behind in this like pile of bug people that this creature has obviously been eating. They have this lovely little fight. They try to prune this thing. And this is where Loki goes in. He's like, he wants to show off or something, right? Prove himself. Because Loki has this thing about proving themselves. Refuse for the hunters to be called on this case. That is going to happen throughout this case. Loki slices a limb off of this creature. And the limb that comes off does prune away. But at the, like, body, the body does not prune away. It actually regrows another 2 limbs. Yes, I'm Hydra-ing you, okay? I don't care. They see that they have a little bit of an issue. Loki and Mo try to continue fighting this thing. Loki gets smashed into a wall and falls and nearly falls into the water, but like instead thuds on ice and sees that their hands have turned blue, like almost instinctually, to stop themselves from falling into the water. They have frozen the water. I hate saying the same word twice in a sentence. There are like these escapes behind in the cave where the water is going down in a waterfall. It's a lot better explained when you read it. Have you thought about reading it? Loki decides we gotta get the fuck out of here. Loki grabs Mobius and they jump off the waterfall. The plan that Loki comes up with is we follow the monster. The monster is in its cave and suddenly it hears two bug people arguing and it looks through the cave and where the waterfall was is no longer the waterfall. It's just this like massive like this platform. It looks like an extension of the cave. And there are two bug people that are like arguing and they're like, "I'm arguing with you. No, I'm arguing with you." And the monster follows or steps out onto the platform carefully until it is in the middle of the platform and suddenly it gives out, right? Because it's Loki's illusion thing. It gives out and it falls, and the lake that they fell into is completely frozen now. But it's thin, and it's the monster falls into it, crashes through the lake, and we see Loki tied with a rope around their waist, dives into the cold water with their lightsaber thing, and tries to stab the creature in the heart, right? This creature cannot swim in deep water. It's kind of implied when we first meet it. Takes hold of it, has this moment where the entire creature becomes frozen because of Loki's Jotun powers, and then Loki stabs it, and there's this like large bang flash. And Mobius is on the surface, and the rope is broken, and he has a little freak out moment, and then he helps Loki out, and he's like, "Oh my god, I thought you were dead." And Loki has had this little line before, which was like, first to prune it, needs to have the other buy them a drink. I need to say that a lot smoother. I don't know how to say that. So he gets out of the water and he's like, "I want ale. I want Asgardian ale." And it cuts to them drinking tea, and Loki is like, "I'm fucking disappointed." Basically, there's a little bit more conversation, and what we lead into is that they get invited to go see the timekeepers. Mobius gets in a little bit of trouble with Ravonna as well, again, where she's like, "You nearly let the case go up to red or whatever." They go and meet the timekeepers. The only reason I have this in here is just to simply show that the timekeepers as the timekeepers are false. They are machines, but they don't fight the timekeepers or anything. What the timekeepers do is that they make it clear to Loki there is nothing special about them. They're like, "There's nothing special about you." And Loki gets a little bit hurt, like ego hurt and embarrassed, and gets angry at Mobius, and he's like, "What the fuck was that? What was the reason you just sent me? You took me in there, that was your plan to make me embarrassed." And he notes that Mobius didn't really plan that, but Loki is sensitive.
Dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards.
How does Mobius deal with this? Mobius is like, "Okay, let's go on a break," and takes Loki to Asgard, and it cuts to them in an Asgardian pub, and Loki has this cloak, like this hood, to hide themselves from the fact that, that's Loki in a timeline where Loki is not supposed to currently be like that. Mobius is looking at Loki. He's a little drunk because it's Asgardian ale, and he cannot handle that. And Loki is on his like third ale or something already. And Mobius is like, "Don't you think that's a bit don't you think that's a little bit weird regarding the cloak?" And Loki misinterprets it as him being in a male form or a male presenting form. And so they change into a woman. And they're like, "Is this better?" And Mobius is like, "What the fuck? What?" And then they change again into another woman with blonde hair. And Mobius is still like, "What is happening right now?" And Loki's like, "Oh, you're right. I look better with black hair. But I thought that the TVA was a lot more progressive, You don't need to worry like about Asgard. We're like completely fine with men being on dates with other men." And they have this conversation, which I think is my version of the love is a dagger conversation that Loki has with Sylvie on the train. I did not like that conversation because it was so unnatural. It was extremely unnatural. But this conversation, to me anyways, feels a lot more natural. And then they have this little thing where Mobius is like, "No, you don't like me and men. You don't like men. You don't like men." And Loki's like fucking offended, right? Loki's offended. I don't think that there's anything baiting about this. I just straight up said, yeah, they're on a date now. Loki wants to be on a date. It's better. I think it's better. You want to talk about, it's better than that stupid ass line.
A bit of both.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
If you want to talk about a queer character, I'm so sick and tired of TV shows being afraid to be like, oh, this character is queer, and oh, by the way, this character is like gay, or this character is trans, or this character is gender fluid. Stop being wusses, okay? Say it how it is. I straight up have Loki say, I like men. I also say that they had a date once, or the closest they got to a date was with Fandral, because I can do that. I'm in charge of this, okay? I can do it.
Sure. I'm the captain now.
This is because I really like that side character, and I just wanted to somehow mention him. Since we're on this, right, the representation being weak, I do want to talk about something fucking important, which is, currently, I live in the UK, but also I just live on planet Earth right now, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of scary stuff happening when it comes to trans rights and when it comes to queer visibility. And so in my description, there are going to be multiple links where you can read up on the stuff that is happening, and links as well if you are a trans person or a queer person who needs support or would like to find community, right? Because we are surrounded by idiots who believe that trans people and queer people do not exist. When we look at history, it is so simple and clear that trans people have always fucking existed. Right? They've always fucking existed. If you don't believe that, why are you watching a TV show about a shapeshifter? Let's continue the conversation. So this like flirty convo where Mobius is really a little bit flustered, of course, leads into another argument. And the argument is basically, again, I wanna fucking live on the timeline, okay? But B15 like gets stuck inside as Loki and Mobius move outside. And I would probably change the way that I wrote it, where Loki specifically does something to like magic B15 to keep her from going outside so that him and Mobius can be left alone in this little argument. They have this convo, and Mobius is like, oh my god, we've had this conversation before.
Played these games before!
500 times, and I've tried to break out of the TVA 500 times, and I have failed over and over and over again, and you keep getting pruned. So I don't understand why you won't just leave it, why you won't just give up. It is obvious that we cannot break the system. Metaphors. It is obvious we cannot break the system, so why can't you just fucking conform to the system? Metaphors. And Loki, exasperated and drunk, sits down in the dirt next to Mobius and is like, fine, I won't fight the system anymore. And then Loki has a little moment where they are staring out at the Asgardian city, like the castle in the far away. They say, oh, there should be a field of flowers on this timeline. There should be. It's my mother's field of flowers, and one day she planted iron bells from Jotunheim. Yes, I am using God of War, right? Do not. I was like, flowers from Jotunheim? Don't come for me. Basically, it comes down to Frigga planted this field of two sets of flowers, one which is a native flower from Asgard and one which is a native flower from Jotunheim, before Loki even knew that she was fucking Jotun, right? And said a line which is no bad thing, right? And what happens in this scene is Loki basically breaks down. And do you see how long it took me for Loki to finally break down? Right? Slow burn is so much fucking better. We are on episode 5, at the end of episode 5, and this is where Loki breaks down. And they break down and they're like, I miss them. I miss my family. And with Loki, Mobius also breaks down out of guilt, right? Because Mobius has done this before 7,000 times. Also, having this conversation gives us, it's important, right? It's not just there for us to have like this breakdown moment. It's important. It gives us more insight into characters. These writers seem to forget that these characters are people, right? They are like people who have a history. Their stories extend further than just the beginning of the movie or the TV show, right? They have a childhood. And Thor and Loki have a childhood together. I do not want that to go, like, I don't want that to be ignored, right? And this will be important later on. The end shot is basically Loki and Mobius crying.
What is its purpose? What is its purpose?
Loki and Mobius are this takes place like almost immediately after the end of episode 5. Loki and Mobius just so happen to have a case in Asgard on that same timeline, and they are following the lead, the trail to a room within the Asgardian palace. And Loki is in a bad mood and Mobius is in a bad mood. Of course, they both just had like fucking breakdown sessions, right? And so they're not really talking to each other, and they're upset. Loki follows the lead. There's a bad feeling. Loki knows what's gonna happen. Loki knows what he's about to see, surely, right? It must be a different version of himself doing something wrong. They open the door. It's Loki's bedroom. And in this bedroom is Sylvie. And she is on the floor or in the center of the room, and she is staring at her blue hand. And that is what has happened. That is what is wrong. So she found out way too fucking early. And you could be like, wait a second. Are you making Sylvie a child right now? Yeah, I am. I am making Sylvie a child. Why am I making Sylvie a child? I'm making Sylvie a child because it's another metaphor. We basically have Loki with his childhood self, his child self, right? That is implying better that this is one person. Okay, it's implying better that they are one person than having a Sylvie that Loki falls in love with. Give me a Loki that Loki wants to protect, a child that Loki wants to protect, that he has now learned deserves to be protected, right? So that's what happens here. Loki sees this. Loki sees Sylvie finding out that she's Jotun way too early. And this is ridiculous. That's not fair. That isn't fair. And so what happens is they get into a fight. B-15 is there as well because B-15 is following them on guard. B-15 fights Loki, right? Loki manages to steal their computer and throw them through time and space. Then Mobius is like, get the fuck out of the way. We need to prune this version of Loki. You promised me that we would just act like everything is normal and this is normal. This is business. We have this like little moment where Mobius kind of like is exasperated and like nearly drops their weapon. So Loki lets down their guard and goes to step away from Sylvie. But then Loki very quickly goes to stab Sylvie, and Loki jumps in front of Sylvie, and the sword lightsaber goes straight through Loki's back and just touches little Sylvie, and they both disappear. My original plan was for that scene to be at the end of episode 5, and it could be a really good end for episode 5 because then it ends on like a cliffhanger, right? And you're like, I wanna watch more. But when I was writing episode 5 and I got to the bit where they were crying in the dirt, I found this song that really fucking matched, and I was like, I want to end it like that. There's like two voices inside of my head. The CEO executive fucking whatever is like, you should end it on the cliffhanger, cause we need audiences to continue watching and be interested. And then there's the other one, which is the artist, but it's more impactful. So let me know what you think I should fucking do. But either way, it still happens. Mobius is fucking shook, right? Shaken. We cut to B-15. B-15 has fallen into like a cornfield. She stands up, her fucking helmet is broken. She doesn't have her computer on her. She's like, what the fuck? How am I supposed to get out of here? When she hears the sound of a child laughing, and something pulls her towards it. And she walks through this cornfield, and she sees on the other side of this cornfield, there is a child laughing and playing with her mother and a dog. And then the door in the little farmhouse opens, and it's her that walks out and calls the child for dinner. And just as B-15 takes a step forward to go and see more of this, the scene entirely changes. Think Severance vibes. The scene entirely changes in the same time that she walks, and she's no longer outside, but she is inside Ravonna's office, and there are two hunters holding her who have brought her there, and she does not remember seeing that, right? We imply that in this scene. Ravonna tells her, well done for pruning Loki. She's like, what? I did what? And she has a stitch on the back of her head. And Ravonna is like, you suffered a nasty concussion. We had to stitch you up. Some of your memories got knocked right out of your head, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. I am promoting you. You get your own team to like lead and stuff. B-15 is confused and everything is really weird. And we're like, whoa, this is our first awareness that actually, if B-15 exists on the timeline, that means that this whole thing that all of the episodes have been going through, which is Mobius constantly saying that the timekeepers created specific people to work for the timeline, that's false. What else are they lying to us about? Then we go back to Loki and Sylvie, and they wake up in the Dust Bowl in the void, and they see this massive beast, and it is coming after them, and Loki wakes her up, and they run away from it, and then they accidentally stumble or fall into somebody's secret hideout. And then it cuts again, and Sylvie is asleep, and Loki is also asleep, but Loki is woken up by themselves. Guess what? It's Loki, sign language Loki, deaf Loki. I also want to preface this, by the way, if I didn't before. This Loki was not pruned because they are deaf, by the way. That would be a fucking ridiculous reason to prune anybody. They have been pruned because canonically, from me anyways, in my head, that I don't exactly fully show you, but I do imply, is because this Loki accidentally got Thor killed. Oops, oops. They converse in sign, which by the way, does not mean that they do not speak. Some people think that when you speak in sign, you don't word things. You could be wondering what's the point of having a sign language in this show? Because I want it. They basically exchange info. Loki is like, why are you here? And Loki is like, well, I stole the Tesseract and she found out too early. And I'm gonna name them Loki and Loki 2. Not because one is lesser than the other, just to make this easier. Loki 2 is like,
Oh, yes, his misfortunes have been very great indeed.
and then gives the information that what is up there is Goliath. How do we defeat it? The continuation of the convo is basically Loki saying, why won't you help us? Don't you want to get to fucking, and even if you've given up in life, don't you want to get to Valhalla? And Loki 2 is like, do you really fucking think that Odin would let us through the gates of Valhalla? And Loki 1 is like, well, what about Frigga? And Loki 2 gets really fucking angry. He's like, get the fuck out of my grave. Go find your own. We come back to Mobius. Mobius is shaken. He has never killed a Loki. He's watched plenty of Lokis be pruned. This is his first time killing a Loki. The judge calls Mobius in, basically gives him a promotion. Well done, you pruned a Loki. I've been waiting this entire time, which if I wrote this better, I would have implied it throughout the entire thing, but... And what is Mobius now? Mobius is a month. And what is a month? They run and work within the memory sector, the memory extraction area. Whoa, the big reveal. They pick up people from the timeline in different sections, right? There's like different things. And once the people they pick up from the timeline finish their training and are skilled enough, they move them into a different sector and wipe their memories. So when they move into that sector, they're like, yeah, I just came from a different sector and I was made by the timekeepers and I don't have a life, right? That's what I'm implying. I don't think I explained it very well, but I explained that here for you to know. It's kind of giving Severance. You could be like, well, why then hasn't that happened to like Loki, or how did he not catch on to it? Because Mobius has only been working with Loki, and all of the Lokis have managed to get themselves pruned before they even moved past the training point. Then we go back to the Dust Bowl. Loki and Sylvie have shacked up. They have found like a broken thing. Loki has a theory that he would like to confirm, so he needs to wait for nightfall, and they're quite far away from Goliath. In the meantime, Sylvie confronts her Jotun form again and has this whole thing where she's like, I'm a monster, and this is where we get Loki, a more effective form of showing that Loki loves himself than simply kissing himself. Um, is this time Loki has this little pep talk conversation with Sylvie, and he's like, you didn't do anything wrong, you're a child, you made mistakes. You're learning, and you are not a monster. And then at the end of it, promises that he will help her get home. Like, promises. Important. Mobius runs to the memory room that we went to in episode 2, and like with the files is able to access certain things and tries to access his own memories, and then a little pop-up comes up and it's like memory deleted, and tries to access B15's memories and it's like memory deleted, and Casey's and it's like memory deleted, and then opens up a new thing and it's like this screen and you can see that memories are flying from new arrivals to like a trash bin kind of thing, and they're like flying by. And he like takes them out one by one until it's a massive wall of memories that he's standing in front of, and it's like, holy mother of fuck.
This is the bad place.
Which is like, I know that you're like, what, he didn't think that pruning, yeah, but the entire point is that he has believed or trusted or something that the system is built and that he is part of the system. He is not a victim of the system, but he is the system, right? And this is like the breaking down that, wow, he actually is a victim of the system. Metaphors. Back to Loki 2. They are going through their little hideout, and we see that their hideout is like a poor rebuilding of Asgard, or the palace, with trash and rubble that they found outside. And then they stop at a broken statue of Thor, and then basically that makes them join Loki and Sylvie to help, right? Because there's something going on inside, don't worry about it. The plan is that they're going to enchant the beast. The theory was that Eliath, like any animal, falls asleep at night. And it's true, Eliath does fall asleep at night. And they're almost certain that Eliath is guarding something, right? Like a guard dog. Two of them succeed, then Sylvie tries to enchant it, succeeds for a second, but as they're all a little bit excited that they manage to like gain some form of control, her magic sparks because she's still a child and inexperienced. It's not exactly her fault, but Eliath wakes up very fucking hungry, knocks them back onto a hill, and Loki too is like, I'm gonna distract it, and basically says something along the lines of like, make sure that Thor gets at least one good ending, and goes and builds up Asgard, because I really actually did like that scene. I thought that it was pretty cool, building up Asgard and using the magic and like distracting Eliath. Whilst this is happening, so whilst Loki 2 is building up the castle, and Asgard and things, and they're trying to enchant Eliath, there are like ambient sounds of Asgard, of music, and of people chattering, because Loki is trying to train Sylvie into really like focusing on her powers, right? And he's like, think of home. And so these like sounds of Asgard and music and people chattering and Thor laughing and Frigga singing, and there's like a rendition of, I found this lullaby from Iceland, and I'm going to butcher the name, I'm so sorry, Softu Unga Stinmin, right? So I would like a very cinematic, very slow rendition of it to start during this scene, as Loki and Sylvie try to enchant Eliath, whilst Eliath is trying to eat Asgard. And the green is spreading, but it's just barely getting to Eliath's neck, and Eliath snaps and eats Loki 2. And Loki 2 smiles as he is consumed. And then Loki, our Loki, suddenly the green magic, turns into this like icy blue, and they like turn into their Jotun form, and freezes the mist, and it explodes. I feel like that's a pretty good end to an episode. Scum means shame in Icelandic. If you are from Iceland and you have corrections, please fucking tell me. I don't know anybody from Iceland, sadly, but hopefully one day I will go. This, just so everybody fucking knows, this is my favorite episode that I've written, and I didn't expect it to be my favorite episode, but I fucking love this episode. Like I love this episode, okay? Maybe I could have written it better. Maybe there are things that I could have added or taken out, but I'm very pleased with this episode and the way that it turned out. We start the episode on Asgard. We focus on a younger Loki. Like, this is sacred timeline. Younger Loki is at the bottom of a mountain and he is reading, or he's holding this book that is open. And in the background there's the sound of weeping, and he looks up and the weeping is coming from the top of this mountain that he is at the bottom of. After a moment of sitting there listening to this weeping with this book in their hand, they take the first step and begin climbing it. Then we cut to Loki and Sylvie, who are standing in front of the door to the castle. So when they go to open the door opens by itself. There's this thing that they did in the original last episode of Loki, which was when they went into like the Citadel of Time. Miss Minutes was there and she had this like little like jump scare, and I just think that's fucking lazy. Or not lazy, it's just useless, and I don't like useless shit. And I don't think that I even liked Miss Minutes either, so she like has no fucking time in this. If you want to make the Citadel of Time scary, all you need to deal with is time itself. Time is fucking scary, and there are other things that are scarier than a jump scare. Okay, that's my belief. I'm not a big fan of jump scares as a form of scaring people. I like suspense, or I don't like body horror. I can't deal with body horror when things are alive, but I can deal with body horror when things are dead. Whoa, that's a weird one. I'm not a psychopath, I promise. It's just that I realized, like, I hate body horror. When I watch Guillermo del Toro's movies, he does this thing which is like super effective, which is when he makes his characters hurt, he doesn't like stab them in the stomach or like shoot them or whatever, like somewhere which is like nobody would get shot. He always targets like parts of the body that are like small, like the ear or like in between the fingers. And that freaks me out so much. It freaks me out so much. But then I watch Hannibal, the TV show, which is one of my, and that's my favorite TV show. I like do yoga whilst I watch Hannibal. It's very cathartic. You should try it. You know, here comes the cat. Anyways, so I got off topic. Doesn't matter. Ignore the boy, or don't ignore him. He's a very nice boy. Don't be mean. Don't be rude. Get your tail out of my face. And so instead of Miss Minute showing up, what it is basically they begin talking to each other a little bit like what is happening, and their voices begin echoing and overlapping over each other from themselves. And it's like kind of gonna be freaky. If I was doing sound design, it would be kind of freaky sound design. And they walk through the first room and they come to this like gateway. It leads into this like black gooey kind of look. And they know that they need to go through there. Loki knows for some unexplainable reason. Suspend your belief for a second, okay? Takes Sylvie's hand and is like, trust me, we're gonna get through this. And walks through the other side, and it's just dark, right? It's entirely dark, and Loki is all by himself. Sylvie is not there anymore. Loki calls Sylvie's names a couple of times, and suddenly a weeping is heard, and he turns, and we like match cut to a younger Loki who has made it to the top of the mountain. And the weeping is louder than it was at the bottom of the mountain. What he sees is this giant woman curled up into the back of the cave, and this woman shifts and turns very slowly until she is staring directly at Loki with these like glowing eyes. Then we cut back to the dark, and Loki takes a step and then another, but he tries to like run out of it, but he can't. He's not moving anywhere. The darkness is like never ending. we would hear too much of his breathing and maybe some of the heartbeat as well. Those are two things that really freak me out. I hate the sound of a heartbeat. Freaks me out. And the sound of breathing, when it's like when you can hear it really in your fucking ear, freaks me out as well. Then he tries to like make light with his magic, but it's like almost as if the darkness is too dark that it even swallows that, and then suddenly it begins to swallow his hand, like the darkness is actually consuming him. And he watches as it rises up his body, and we watch as it rises up his body and consumes him entirely. Then we cut back to the Asgard mountain, the cave. He's looking at what we will know as Angrboda. I hope that I'm not butchering that name. It's a giant, and in the original myths, Loki and her have a child, and I believe they have Jormungandr. I cannot say that name as a child, but obviously because this is Marvel, they already changed a bunch of things, so like Fenrir isn't Loki's kid. Hela isn't Loki's kid either, right? So we're changing shit up. We're allowed to change shit up a little bit for Marvel. Hopefully in a not disrespectful way. If you're from Iceland, please let me know. She is this like massive woman, and what we see is that he notices that she is a giant. And we notice that her body is actually half snake. So like the top of her body is a woman, and she has these like robes on her, and this like she looks sickly, I'm not gonna lie. Despite being really, really big, she is also really sickly. And she points out, she's like, "You're a prince," and he lies. He's like, "I'm a servant. I stole these clothes."
Sure, Jan.
He has this line where he says, "The palace is kind to us." And Angrboda replies, "The palace is kind only to those who are a weapon." So what kind of a weapon are you? She has this like snake tongue as well. And she points out that he has powers. So she's like, "A servant of magic. Are you Frigga's weapon?" Like Hela, I want this, like, I want to add more lore to Asgard, right? I want Loki to have maybe heard the name before, but he never knew what it was until it came down to Ragnarok. And he spots behind her, which is something that he has been looking for, is this glint of this like glass kind of kettle that holds this like red liquid inside. You covet Odrerir. Again, I'm sorry if I am mispronouncing it. But in Norse mythology, if I'm not mistaken from my research, it is this kettle that holds blood from another Norse mythological character who held great wisdom, and it's said that you can use his blood to create a mead of like wisdom and poetry and knowledge. And I just feel like that's something that Loki would really fucking want. I don't know. That just feels like, yeah, he would go looking for that. "What would you give to hold your desire?" is what she says. And we cut back to, suddenly we cut to a marbled room, a white marbled room, which is like blaringly lame, and he notices in the far distance of this white, never-ending room that there's a body lying down, and he goes towards it. It looks like Sylvie, and when he goes to turn it over, suddenly it's not Sylvie, it's actually Thor, and Thor is like bleeding. Also, I forget, the room is extremely cold, and this is something that's also like a bit weird, is that you can see Loki's breath out in front of him, and he's shivering, and he shouldn't be shivering because he's a Jotun, but whatever. Thor is like blood at his chin, there is an ice dagger in his chest, and he's coughing and he's wheezing, and he's saying, "You did this, you did this," and continue saying, "You did this," and Loki is disagreeing. He's like, "No." And Thor, the image of Thor, like grows and is shouting and like unnaturally begins looming and then changing and forming into an image of Odin. And Odin is continuing this. "You did this, you did this." And Loki is beginning to panic, is panicking, and is shrinking smaller and smaller. And Loki's on his knees and he's begging for mercy and he's sobbing and his head is dipping. And then suddenly, like, the thunder and the fucking panic of the scene disappears. And we're in a garden and Loki is still heaving, having this panic. Frigga calls his name and he looks up and his mother is there. And she's on her knees and she's looking at him with this pity, this like sadness, this gentleness. Can you tell that I like this episode more because I'm like explaining every single thing to you, so even if you don't read it, you need to know what the fuck is going on.
And I knock on her door and I say, "Carol!
But Loki cannot tell what is real, but this is like a comfort that he wants. So he allows this Frigga anyways to comfort him. And slowly, just as Loki, because we're gonna settle on this scene. I like things to like really settle. So really, Loki is trying to get out of this panic attack. And we sit there as Loki comes down from this panic attack. And just as he is about to calm down, just as he does calm down, Frigga asks, "You did this?" And the scene changes abruptly and he falls into a dark marbled room. And he's in Kang's throne room now, right? And Sylvie runs to him and like helps him up and stuff. And Kang says his first line, "What happened is what will happen to all of us when you," he points to like Sylvie or Loki, "finally kill me." And then we cut to Odin's vault at nighttime. Younger Loki is moving through the vault. What ends up happening here is he finds this, it's like a snake egg. Then we cut back to Kang's throne room. Loki is like really fucking out of it. He's like, "How the fuck did you do that?" And he's like, "It's not like sorcery that I hold. This is just like a beast that needs contained. That, what you just saw." And Loki's like, "Goliath?" And Kang is like, "No, no, don't be fucking ridiculous. Sit down." And they have this conversation. He's like, "Let's loosen up. I'm not gonna hurt you. If anything, you're here to hurt me." And he basically makes it really, really fucking clear that like he knows that they're gonna kill him and there's nothing that he can do to stop it because he's seen everything. He's seen the future and it always stops at a Loki killing him. But he can't tell which one because they are both in essence the same person and his vision always gets blurry near the end of his death. I also kind of redesigned Kang a little bit. Just like it would be the same like person, but it's his like costume and makeup and things is I would make him have like these like there's like these rings around his neck which are like into his skin and there's like these rings around his arms which are like poking into his skin. It's like all of this like machinery, this like golden clockwork like machinery that is connected to him, part of him, to really get across the point that he is connected, right? And what he is a man, an inventor. He is not a god, he is just an inventor who has somehow managed to connect himself to the universe, to the timeline, and has somehow managed to control the timeline. So Loki and Sylvie are correct in assuming that once they kill him, they will free the timelines. He is a sort of energy source. And he seems to be like pretty happy with this, honestly. He's like fine with it. But he does say something. He's like, "I don't agree with it though. I need you to know the reason why I did this was to keep people out there safe." This is important, and I think that this makes more of a conflict because Loki experienced the thing that he experienced in there. Sylvie did not, right? And I want everybody to remember Loki promised that he was going to get her home. Then we cut to the mountain cave in the morning. And Loki calls for Angrboda. She comes back and she looks even worse than she did before. She looks even worse and sick and ill and skinny.
So you think I'm skinny?
And she calls him like Odin. She says, "You are like him."
You are like Papa!
Really?
I also imply in the scenes when Angrboda is... Again, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering the name. But I do imply in the scenes that she cannot leave the cave. Finally, they like exchange. And then we cut to Odin's throne room, where Odin is pacing back and forth, and he is covered in blood with his battle armor. And his anger, we don't hear it, but we see it as he's like yelling at Loki. Then we cut back to Kang's throne room. And Loki understands, because what he just experienced is fucking horrible, and he had no control over it. He had no power over it. We saw he tried to use his powers and he was still consumed, right? And he's like, that's if this is what this is for, if this is what the TVA is for, fine.
If this is about my soul, take it.
No, this is for the greater good. And Sylvie's head whips and she's like, "But you promised." And Loki was like, "Mobius is right." And they have this whole thing where Sylvie gets up and she has this fucking argument with Loki where she's like, "You promised, you told me that you would kill him and we would get back to my fucking timeline." And she doesn't believe. She doesn't believe that anything that Kang says about the fact that they can't return to their timelines, even if they do release the timelines, because their original timelines have already been pruned. Kang is like, oh, look at the time. I need to be fucking killed soon. Come on, who's gonna do it? Loki gets basically flung out of the Citadel of Time by Kang. If he's not gonna kill Kang, then Kang doesn't actually want him here. He's like, come on, let's get this fucking party wrapped up. Somebody's supposed to kill me. If you're gonna have this character who knows that they're going to die and they're excited about the fact that they're going to die, why not make them excited about the fact that they're going to die? Like, really excited. You get to watch the rest of the episode. Enjoy.
Sing us a song to keep us warm. There's such a chill, such a chill.
I really hope copyright doesn't kill me. Anyways, that was my rewrite of Loki season 1. Yeah. Hope you liked it. Please do read it. You can read it for free. I do have a family that is trying to get out of Gaza right now, that I am trying to get them to get money to get out of Gaza. I'm sorry, that wasn't English. If you have any money to spare, please do think about going into their link tree and donating, because it's really important to me that they reach their goal. And if you enjoyed my video, then I think that's the least you could do. I don't know. I did spend a month on this. So, thanks guys. Oh, God, this is so fucking random. But look what I went to TK Maxx like 3 days ago, after I finished writing everything, and I went to TK Maxx simply just to get actually just this, because I needed a new notebook, and TK Maxx has the best notebooks for cheap as well. And then I found this ring, which, tell me that is not the most fucking Loki thing. And I couldn't help myself. I found this book with Norse fairy tales and folk tales. Do you want to know how much this book was? $2.99. Proof. Proof. I had to buy it. It was $2.99. You never find books that are $2.99. Yeah. All that being said, I'll see you next month. I will see you next month. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thank you.